Welcome to EWA's FIN-LYT Podcast. EWA is a fee-only RIA based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We hope all listeners of this podcast will benefit as we deep dive into complex financial topics that we will make simplified for you. And we hope that this really serves as a catalyst so that you can make the best financial planning decisions for your family and also save time. All right, welcome everybody. Excited to be joined by Devin and Ben, EWA team. Today we're talking about 10 lessons that we plan on teaching our kids or future kids for Ben. Ben doesn't have any kids yet, but Devin and I do. So yeah, excited. I think this is one of the most valuable things that if you have kids and you're in the financial planning process with a financial advisor, being able to carry that through with your kids is going to be more important than what wealth you leave behind, is teaching them the skill set of how to earn it, how to keep it, and how to make decisions around it to support your life by design versus, a lot of people, money can be a power that's used against you, or it can be something that you accumulate for the wrong reason. So these discussions I think are one of the most important things. So,
yep. One thing I would add, we always talk about helping kids versus enabling kids. And I think the more lessons you can teach them at the earliest age possible, the more you're helping kids and the more you're, like you said, getting them to understand the value of money and hard work and all the things that we'll be talking about. So this is a really good balance between helping and enabling, and something we talk with clients about all the time.
It's sometimes can be a taboo topic too, because my daughter's 6.5, and so done a lot of things. She already has like a card that's attached to a separate account I set up that through Chase Bank allows you to do this, and so like we'll go grocery store shopping, and I'll make her have a cart. This little cart, and she'll like pick it out and then like teach her the price of things and what she wants. I'm like, oh, you don't have enough money for that. So it just started that process. But what I found is she'll start sharing that with everybody. And so, I think it's a really important conversation, but it has to be done artfully as well. And so it's something that I think if you can tell when you're interacting with like new adults, how they've been brought up and how, if they came from an enablement or if they hadn't grinded out by themselves. So,
well, for context, I've got a teenager, a little bit older. She's 8 years older than Rory, something like that. So I have a little bit more time, and just as they get older, they understand more things. I remember doing you go to the store, like, what does this cost? What does that cost? But yeah, we'll definitely throw in some things for when they're a little bit older than elementary school.
All right. Well, so first lesson, we're going to go through 10 lessons that we'd advise have these conversations with your kids before they turn 18. So, Ben, you want to start out number one?
Yeah, first one, and this is going to kind of dovetail into a couple others, but the fact that money comes from work, you don't just snap your fingers and money appears. Hard work, money, money earned is very valuable. So explaining the value of earning through chores, lemonade stands, giving them an allowance based on certain tasks they complete, can help introduce the idea of work. And as they get older, I think, as kids are, in their teen years and they're actually, working at jobs, then this can kind of lead into a conversation about funding a Roth IRA, things with active income, but just getting the idea of making them understand that money does come from work. It doesn't just appear.
No question. Couldn't agree more. I like the lemonade stand. I sold dandelions when I was a kid for like $1 per dandelion.
Big margins in dandelions?
Big margin. Yeah, me and my brother, we sold out. I mean, some person felt sorry for us and just bought them all, I think. But anyways, genius idea. All right, well, Devin, let's go into number two.
Number two, this is a big one. Spend less than you earn. So whatever money's coming in, just try to keep the money going out less than that. Sounds simple, but can be complex, especially for kids, depending on the age.
Yes, I think the concept I was brought up with this, and I'm passing it down to Rory, is like three departments or three segments. So actually gave her 3 big piggy banks, but now we have it broken out electronically. But it's, one to save, one to spend, and one to give. So the spend is, when she Target or the grocery store, she has that cart. The saving is, how a third right now, and then a third would be giving it away to charity.
How is she with saving? It's hard.
I mean, she doesn't have a joy. It's just kind of like, here's what's happening. But yeah, no, having the conversations has been really great. She's like, why do I need to say, why can't I buy the Barbie doll dream house? I'm like, well, then it dovetails right in that conversation.
Yep.
So, okay. And then, so lesson number 3 is just the power of saving. So importance of delayed gratification, how to set savings goals and track progress. And then, so there's, I think two lessons learned. The simple one would be like a big purchase, allowing them to save for that, whether it's like a bike or I remember as a kid, I had to save up for, it was actually my brother saved up for a lawnmower and then started a lawn mowing business from that, which is pretty cool. And then he used that to buy a laptop. So I thought that was pretty cool. But I think there's two lessons. So if it's a big purchase, let's say of like a couple $100s more, letting them save up for that. Or the second lesson would be, depending on their age or their interest levels, as quickly as possible, teaching about compound interest and showing, if you look at a Roth IRA, start at age 1 or 5, let's say even 10, versus if you start that at 25, I mean, it is massively different. So I'll do some math real quick, but I mean, the lesson number 1 from Ben, which was money comes from work. If you teach that, and then let's just say they start working at a young age, earning some income, and then if they're even able to put $500 a month into Roth, and they do that age 10, and then let's say till 60, that's 50 years of compounding, so 600 months, and then we earn 7% on that. That's $2.7 million at age 60, and then at age 70, that's $5.5 million, $5.59 million. So versus, let's say we start that at 30, and 30 years later, you do the same thing, you have $600,000. So almost 9 times the amount of money starting 20 years earlier. So I think sharing the importance of the compound interest, that wonder of the world, eighth wonder of the world, is super important. So, all right, just going around, Ben.
Yeah,
what's number 4?
Real quick, one more note on that. I remember I really wanted the game Guitar Hero when I was a kid.
Kind of dating yourself. That was a long time ago.
Well, yeah, it's just, I'm with the old guys in this podcast room. I gotta act like an old guy here. But I asked my parents for it. They said no, but they gave me an idea of what it cost, and then with my allowance and chores and kind of working up to it, I was able to save enough money to buy it. And it's so vivid in my head. If my parents had said, yeah, sure, we'll get it for you, would I have learned that lesson? Would I have, figured out how important it is to actually work for something and the power of saving? So it's kind of a random example. And no, I'm not, that didn't translate to I have no guitar talent. But
did you eventually get it?
I did get it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I kind of got sick of it after like 2 weeks, but
that's how it always works.
Yeah, kind of a less important footnote of that story. But yeah, so power saving, super important. Other lesson number 4, how banks work. Matt, you mentioned your daughter has an account for her name. That's helpful for her to learn the value of a bank. Where is your money held? It's not, adults don't have money sitting in a piggy bank, So it's just good to know at a young age, difference between a checking account, a savings account, where that money sits and how you can access it, things like that.
Yeah, 6 years old was pretty aggressive. She put it in this little purse and lost it second day. So I had to call them and replace it. But it was a good lesson. This is really important. You can't lose it. And then we have some recurring chores for her, and then she gets $6 a week so then we log in to her iPad, she can see it, transfer, and if she doesn't do the chores, then she doesn't get it. So
this is all done on the app?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So pretty cool.
Check that out.
Okay. So Devin, just going around, what's number 5?
Lesson 5 is credit. It's a big one, especially for older kids, and especially for kids that are looking into go to college and potentially get out student loans potentially. But this is the big credit and debt, just understanding how it works, right? You borrow money, you have to pay it back at some point. Maybe it's along the way, but there's going to be an interest. Everything has a cost, like we said, including money itself. So it's not going to be free, and figuring out how much is that going to cost at the end of the day. At the end of the day, figuring out how much that's going to cost in total. So you might borrow whatever is $10,000, $100,000, $1 million. What's that actually going to, what do you end up going to be paying after all is said and done?
No
right?
question. And a quick tip or trick, you can add your kids as an authorized user with their social security number to your credit card. Doesn't mean they're getting a credit card, but like I just did that for my daughter. And so she's 6.5, so she'll have 12 years entering college. She gets credit for those on-time payments. And so she'll have a excellent credit score going, so which will enable her to get, the best school loans, or if car loan, whatever, best deals with the best credit at a young
I remember
age.
back in in college, like they used to give out credit cards, remember, with like
Yeah.
a blanket or a towel. Like I don't think they can do that anymore. So it's maybe not as, I don't know, as important of a concept, given that they're about to like enter school and then like kind of be like thrown to the wolves. But it's still very, very important to make sure that you got a good credit score, you understand how credit works and debt works, and that you don't put yourself in a big hole.
Yeah. I would follow this lesson under things you think you will learn in school, but you probably won't.
Mhm.
So things like using credit, how taxes work, how insurance works. I'm not saying 8-year-olds need to know how taxes work, but 18-year-olds should probably have an idea of how taxes work, health insurance, things like that.
Mhm.
Things that you're not really taught in school, but expected to know as an adult. So the more lessons that you can teach your kids as they get older about this, the more value that they'll have moving forward.
Absolutely. Well, lesson number 6, I'd hit on a little bit with the magic compounding interest. So, just teaching investment early and just illustrating. Most kids have iPads now and try to limit the screen time, but just getting them used to how a compound calculator can work and just having these conversations. I gave a high school talk to a local high school here in the inner city, and it was mind-boggling to see how interested the kids were. We talked about real life examples and how a little bit of investing and you put it in the right account, how that can really grow over time. And so I think earlier the better. You can start having those conversations and also teach your kids, well, you do this, money should be very private. I'm not going to disclose any of my personal information to my 6-year-old, but just teaching the concept, teaching the and why are you saving a third of the money of chores that you make versus just spending it all on the Barbie dolls. Super important.
Well, compound interest is a difficult concept to grasp even for adults. Do you have any like go-to examples to teach?
I haven't yet. I haven't gotten that, but I'm going to for sure. I'm just going to show. I mean, the
Remember the classic one from like, was it
Yeah, like
college?
would you
Like
rather like $1,000 an hour, like a penny every day for the next 30 days? And that blew I was in like 3rd grade when I learned that. It like literally blew my mind. Like
Yeah.
I could not believe that a penny a day for 30 days would outweigh, whatever large lump sum the other option was. So quicker you can get that lesson learned. And again, you mentioned with the Roth IRA and the example of just, hey, starting it as early as possible, that's going to create huge value for you moving forward. And the quicker you can learn that lesson, the better.
No question. Well, so number 7, Ben.
Yeah, giving back. You mentioned you have your daughter kind of save money in 3 categories: spending, saving, and giving. Encouraging charitable giving or at the volunteering, I think for kids is a huge value add. Let's say your kid is super interested in animals, having them donate to an animal shelter or volunteer at an animal shelter just so they can see the value of where their money is going. I think that's a huge, it's a hard lesson to teach a kid that, you're giving money away, but they don't really know where it's going. So if they can get some real world experience volunteering or learning where their money is going for causes that they are passionate about, that's a super important lesson that the earlier you learn it, the better.
No question. I think, and they can touch and feel that charity as much as possible. So,
Mhm.
so you have an example of one, with Rory that we decided to do, and it's actually a former colleague from a former company that's developed the school with his son in Kenya, and it's for the community to make sure they have good education resources. And so I'm going to be taking Rory there. I think at age 8 is what I agree with her mom to go volunteer at that school, and it's just to see and interact with the kids. And but that's something we decided to start giving to monthly. And so I think that it's important not just to teach the concept of the charity, but show the impact, to let them touch and feel it and be involved with it as possible. So
For sure.
okay, well, we're moving along. Devin, what's number 8?
Yeah, we touched upon this a little bit earlier, but this idea of being a smart consumer, understanding how much different things cost, from a banana to a house and everything in between, and just making sure that they're not overspending, whatever that means for you and for the kids. So yeah, I think that covers it.
All right, well, lesson number 9, setting financial goals. So short, mid, and long term is what we always talk about for clients. I think that conversation can be an easy conversation for kids. Okay, in high school, what do we want to do? In college and after college, and that really springboards into how a student loan works and how much debt you should take on versus not. The skin in the game conversation versus just giving them like a free ride, and then career paths, and it makes sense. So I think that kind of short, mid, and long term conversation is very it springboards into all these different conversations. Imagination come into play, and reality can come into play in the same sense.
And obviously, a lot of our clients, sorry to interrupt, Ben, but a lot of our clients typically have college taken care of for their kids. So it's less about how do student loans work, and it's more about the sacrifices that we made as your parents, that you made with the money that maybe you didn't get for your birthday to buy on shoes or a Guitar Hero or something like that. Just understanding that, just walking through, like, this is what college actually costs. And rather than you having to pay it out of your, take loans or get a summer job or whatever, like we made those sacrifices for you. So just a conversation to have about those things.
Absolutely. Well, Ben, number 10, close out strong.
Yeah, and I think mistakes are a part of learning. That's lesson number 10. Going back to the goals for a quick second. I mean, one of my goals when I was 6 or 7 was to make it to the NBA. So, the jury's still out on that. But, hey, let your kids make mistakes. Let your kids dream a little bit. For those listening, I am not yet in the NBA. It's just, I think I had a bad shoulder that one year. But, let them make small financial mistakes. Let them overspend on something, once or twice, and let them learn that lesson. Because we work with people all the time that, mistakes happen, financial mistakes happen as they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s. And so it's something that's going to happen as you grow up, but it's something you'll learn from. And I think allowing your kids to make mistakes, but also making sure that they learn from it is one of the most important things you can teach them.
Absolutely. Well, any rapid fire miscellaneous ones that you weren't included in the 10, just general advice that you'd want to close with, Devin or Ben?
Maybe just a follow-up to the mistakes one is that feel free to share with your kids some of the mistakes that you made, in your adult life. And rather than them having to experience them themselves, they can learn from your specific mistakes and how you overcame it.
Absolutely.
Just a thought.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is just teaching that money is not, it's not it doesn't make you more valuable or less valuable if you have it or not have it. A lot of times it can be a private conversation. Here's why you don't want to share, every detail, with your friends. And so there are a lot of as the kids get older, I think the artwork behind the money and the financial plans of how to navigate in the real life can be really important. They say 80% of your time with your kids is done by the age of 18. I hope that's not the case, but just the reality for most people. And so the more you can teach them your values, your philosophy, while they're under your roof, I think the better success they'll have on the back end, and the less mistakes that they'll make. I mean, the goal I think for everyone is to have your kids be more successful than you are at every stage of life. So, but doing so in a good citizen, making sure they're doing good in the world, and providing value is
for sure,
key.
One thing I would add is, as your kids get older, middle school, high school, if they're starting to work summer jobs, help them understand the things that you wish you knew at their age. So if they get a pay stub, help them break it down, help them understand what taxes are, where theirs are going, how insurance works, how to read a pay stub, things like that, I kind of mentioned it before, but things that maybe you're not taught in school that you're expected to know. Those would be a really good lesson to have with your kids as they get older and start working and start earning income.
No question. Well, thanks for joining, and we'll catch everyone next week. Thanks for tuning in to our podcast. Hopefully you found this helpful. Really hope this is as beneficial and impactful to as many people across the nation as possible. So hit the follow button. Make sure to rate the podcast, and please share with any friends or family members that would also find this beneficial. Thank you very much.